Today, we complete this 3-round mock draft with trades. Let's get right into this. We're going to take a quick review, but the best way to experience this is in person. I am having to re-record this because the file I uploaded for you guys to watch yesterday ended up corrupting, and I had a work party that ended up taking me late. So hopefully you guys do enjoy this, but we'll be discussing the trades, and I will be discussing a little bit about certain players like Ty Simpson, but this is under the theory that everybody except like Connor Liu ends up coming out. So, and of course, talking about like Quincy Rhodes, who already decided to return to school. But regardless, we ended up having 2 trades in the top, and I'm glad that we did Fernando Mendoza first. The Jets ended up trading with the Titans, ended up recomping their picks that way, and then got the quarterback that just ended up laying the biggest W upon the forehead of Ohio State. Kind of crazy. Of course, I mean, technically the scoreboard didn't look like he was doing the best thing, but 3 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays. Don't worry, we'll have a stock report possibly out today or tomorrow. It'll be easy. It's just I'm trying to see when it's best to drop it for you guys. But Dante Moore ended up being that second quarterback taken via a trade up with the Browns. I saw a video of a coach who ended up saying, like, look at this. There's a minute left, and Stefanski's not even looking at Shedeur. And I'm not going to get into like the politics of all of it, but I mean, you can just kind of tell when people like someone or not. Just going to put that out there. But at number 4, we had Ty Simpson. There's a chance he returns to school. I just don't really know how they're going to be able to rebound from that. It's kind of a sour taste in people's mouth, but there is a chance he actually returns to school now since his first year starting and can end up going back and competing for Alabama. Of course, via the trade back with Cleveland, the Giants got Jordan Tyson, and then we'll also talk about it later. Same with the other pick, and then the same thing with the Titans. They trade back and got Carnell Tate. Then we continue on. Not really many trades. I like the value of a lot of things. Sonny Styles going off ends up making me feel a lot better about him at 15. And then you have Caden Proctor, small trade here with Dallas and Houston, going to the Texans. And then the Cowboys sticking with Francis at right tackle, which again can't be much worse than Terrence Steele. We'll see, there is a part of me that definitely thinks that maybe a Johnny Cornelius could have like potential there for the long haul. If that ends up becoming a little bit more of a trend, then obviously we'll ditch that going forward. But also part of that Titans trade down, they got Avion Terrell, and they traded up to get Keldrick Falk. So they had a good haul in the first round. Denzel Boston is selected by a trade up with the Patriots. A good amount of wide receivers were taken in this range because also the Cowboys traded back once again with the Broncos so they can end up snagging KC Concepcion. Dallas then drafted David Bailey, and then the same player would have drafted for the Chargers, and Vega goes at number 32. Let's try to make this another really enjoyable, quicker episode. I got some stuff to do today. We want to have a good time, but also, when it's this theory where it's not hyper realistic because players are going to return to school, I think it's a great opportunity for us to, just have fun more than like truly dig into the depth of what we're doing. That being said, you guys know I like to talk. I try my best not to do it too much, but we'll still do things with logic. We'll still have a great time, but we're not going to push this over an hour. That's my goal. That was my Achilles heel. I just jinxed it. But at number 33 for the Giants, their first pick, Jordan Tyson, ended up, of course, doing some trade swaps with the Titans, ended up acquiring pick 69 as well, and then some future capital. Really like the fact that they're just sitting here, sitting pretty. You could end up looking at offensive tackle right now. And Trevor Goosby is the one that I'm intrigued with. The thing that I love is that Goosby, I think you should try to keep Illuminor for a little bit longer. Goosby could be the long-term option here. But I do think at the same time, we could be looking at linebacker here. CJ Allen coming off a really, in my opinion, pretty dominant run defense campaign this past year. Like that to me, Ant Hill, it just depends on what kind of flavor of ice cream you like. Anthony Hill is a completely different player than CJ Allen. I think they're both pretty similarly graded for me. So I'll go after Ant Hill because I think I ended up going after the other linebacker last time. So number 34, though, Cleveland Browns. Some people posed the idea of going Arvell Reese to the Browns earlier. And we're like, Jim Schwartz is going to make it work. Why not have the 2 best linebackers in the NFL? And I thought it was a little crazy, but it's a fun idea nonetheless. But of course, this is via some trades and everything. I really like how everything shifted around It's kind of nice. But Dante Moore was that first selection. Now, here at number 34, again, they only have one player that they have taken so far. They need to focus on offensive line. With the players available, I'm going Trevor Gooseby. There's still a chance he returns to school. Strong chance, I would say, especially with the money, with the way that he's positioned in this class as like a fringe 1 to 2, and probably a little bit more on the latter side. But you're definitely in a good spot to return, be with Arch Manning. There's a chance Ant Hill does it too. We'll see what happens. Number 35, New Orleans Saints, first pick, Arvell Reese. Here at number 35, part of me believes that you can just continue ignoring the offense and go to the defensive side with the best player available in Christian Miller. FYI, PFF, please take out players who have returned to school. I have a lot of love for PFF. Maybe not in terms of like fully using like all their grades as gospel, but it is getting a little ridiculous. Like the amount of times that, this is like the number one company right now in terms of, mock draft stuff. Should probably have your simulator updated. It's not that hard. I know there's a lot of things they do, but no disrespect. This is something that you're charging people for. You don't have a good excuse. So just got to throw that out there. PFF, please step your game up because we kind of all want to love your product. I'm just gonna be real. I'm kind of getting a little bit phased out of using this type of stuff. But regardless, I pay for it, and it's like a good layout and stuff. But Omar Cooper Jr. is a really solid player. Not necessarily coming off like a astounding week, but this is a great fit for the Saints if you want to go after a weapon. Since we have 3 rounds, I don't feel like we need to do that. I'd prefer to go after best player available. And to me, getting interior pressure is extremely important. And especially in a 3-4 system where you can have Christian Miller be flexing to multiple spots, I think there's incredible value here for someone who I have a top 15 player on my board. And with Ty Simpson being where he's at, he will end up dropping a little bit with reevaluation. And it's going to be good to see that. But, it's going to be a little more balanced to where I was a little bit of a skeptic of him. Came around, and then he ended up sliding a little bit in terms of his talent production. But 36, Las Vegas Raiders. First pick was Ty Simpson, speak of the devil. There is still a chance that happens. I mean, he has really good, he has some incredible traits. It's just stop. Just throw earlier. That's one of the biggest things for me. I had a really big problem with Ty in how he just ended up consistently throwing late. It's like he didn't trust his eyes. And then people called me an idiot for it. I mean, if you want to do that, feel free to do that. But it's true. I mean, it's just the truth. But I'm going to look at offensive line here as well. I'm just going to test out to see if there's anybody there. Max Ianker in round 3, not a bad choice. Jennings Dunker, probably going to be a center in the NFL. Searveld to guard. Tiernan, after this past week, I just don't want to test the theory out of him trying to switch to the right side. Blake Miller's the next guy I would be looking at. And he is coming off a red hot week versus South Carolina, where he went up against a top 5 potential pick and ended up only allowing 1 pressure. So I do think the Raiders need to look at right tackle for the long haul. We'll see if that ends up coming to fruition. But I'm just going to take the shot on it. 35-inch arms for Blake Miller as well. I didn't like how he performed last year. Scared the shit out of me. But this year, he's kind of rebounded to the player I really liked in 2023. 37, Cleveland Browns. Dante Moore, Trevor Gooseby. Wide receiver core-wise, I think I'm actually going to take a shot on Omar Cooper Jr. here. I personally feel perfectly fine with those two being my key hitters, and then take a little bit of a shot on Omar Cooper Jr. He's a fantastic player. He graded out to me as a second-round quality guy, and he's been doing a phenomenal job. I mean, he's not the best-built guy in history, 6'2", 204, but he plays pretty much every part of the game to a very satisfactory or really solid level. And for a team like the Browns that needs to have at least something going right on offense, this is a great way to do that. You have Dante Moore, Omar Cooper Jr., and Trevor Gooseby, who could end up being a young trio for the next 4 to 10 years that you guys are really going to love. I say 4 because God only knows what happens after 4 years with some of these second-round picks. But 38, Houston Texans. Caden Proctor was their first move, and they ended up having some recomped picks by shifting up and selecting said player. But running back's possibly going to be the move that I go with here. I also am intrigued with the idea of Jennings Dunker at center. Like Caden Proctor at left guard, Jennings Dunker at center is not a bad combination. The Texans are very focused on big schools. And so I think that's actually a good thing to do. I mean, you get Jennings Dunker, who is going to be a little bit higher floor, in my opinion, than Caden Proctor, based on the fact that he's just more of like a wrestling champion. He's going to be a little bit closer, or at least like a pretty damn dominant wrestler. He's going to be a little bit more reliable on the interior off the bat than maybe Caden, who's having to learn something new. Jennings, I think, has more of a foundation for instant impact. Now, I was not a big fan of Jennings Dunker coming to the year, but just more people, again, I blend my opinions with the consensus to give you guys my twist on a mock draft, not my version of a mock draft, but still. Number 39, New York Jets. First pick, Fernando Mendoza, did require those multiple first-round picks to do so. And to be fair, I think that's a good thing to do. Like wide receiver, a lot of people want to go for one here. Jeremy Bernard's an intriguing choice. Like he's just the definition of reliable, but I don't think I need to force that. Part of me really does want to look in the linebacker core at CJ Allen here. Like I think CJ Allen's a very solid linebacker that could provide a very high floor and a good impact for the Jets. Defensive interior wise, there's a lot of very good players here. Amari Washington being one of them. I've taken him to the Jets several times this year, and there's a chance he comes back. But if Dante Moore leaves, there's also a chance that he's like, well, I have good enough stock. I'm going to come out too. And a lot of people really like this guy. And this is going to be somebody at 330 pounds, is a very unique frame for the amount of impact and the explosiveness that he has. We're going to go Amari Washington to the Jets. So no trades, but that's because a lot of very good players are here. For the Cardinals, their first pick was Spencer Fano. I'm running to the podium here. CJ Allen. If I weren't to go him, I mean, there's a good opportunity. I mean, some people have even gone edge, by the way, for the Cardinals, which is kind of nuts. I think they've invested pretty heavily there. Like outside of that for the Cardinals, I would have looked at Jadarian Price. It's a red hot pick, but it is one that I would love to test out one of these days. 41 for the Falcons. This is their first pick. Part of me does think that the value here, I mean, Keith Abney is here. Keith Abney slipped. That's a crazy thing. I mean, to be fair, not many of these teams here are lurking for a corner. That is pretty damn nice. We're going to get our solid boundary corner two there with Keith Abney, who might not test well. If we're going to be completely honest, even though I have Keith Abney in my top 25, there's a chance he just does not test well. And if that happens, some teams are going to have a little bit more reservation about him, but he's a fantastic player. 42, Cincinnati Bengals, first pick, Caleb Downs. Second pick, I do want to end up helping out on the offensive line. And I mean, personally, Austin Searveld's been extremely reliable this year as a left tackle, but he just projects the NFL so much better as a guard that I'd prefer to take him and then just, see where the pieces line up and, just kind of test it that way. We're going to go Austin Searveld there. Guard / tackle of Ohio State. At 43 for the Minnesota Vikings, Jeremiah Love was the first round selection. I'm running this to the podium right now. Dylan Thieneman, defensive back out of Oregon. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren would be my next choice for them. It's pretty much locked in at safety. Just the value there is impeccable. Dolphins, first pick, Brandon Cisse, cornerback out of South Carolina. I love that guy. He's a great corner. Just ended up meeting pretty much his kryptonite there versus Texas A&M and doubled the amount of yards he allowed all year long. But regardless, for the Dolphins, there's a lot of routes you can go. I think wide receiver, the value's just not there. Tight end, not going to spend that type of draft capital there. So like offensive line wise, Caleb Tiernan's an intriguing one. But after seeing him allow 7 pressures this past week, I do think if you have other options that are intriguing, I'd prefer to go look at that. And I did this last week or earlier this week, maybe. I'm going to go Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. I'm going to fully address the secondary. Having a weak secondary is just your pretty much golden ticket to having a shitty season. I mean, it's like having a bad quarterback, but just the opposite. You're just allowing the other quarterbacks to have an easier time. And so we're going to go Emmanuel McNeil-Warren there. 45 for the Chiefs. First pick, Peter Woods. Hello. Second pick, part of me wants to go after Jadarian Price, and I do think some teams need to get aggressive here. Granted, they're not really within striking range, so maybe not at this spot, but if it continues to slip, I think there's a chance there. Cornerback-wise, Julian Neal's a perfect corner for the Chiefs. I mean, the physicality that he brings, the zone floor he has. Definitely, if they're going to be looking more into that corner realm, that's where I'm going to be focusing. I'm going to look at the edge rushers here, though. And you got Mateo Uyagale, who also could be coming out. You do need a more pass rush focused edge rusher. And so Mateo, even though he has a little bit more of the lower floor, the ceiling definitely can end up working well with playing with everything there. And then again, now you also have Peter Woods in the equation, and you're just retooling your defense to become more of the focal point of the team to allow Mahomes to kind of do what he needs to do without the pressure. Number 46, Pittsburgh Steelers. Jermod McCoy was the first round selection. Again, we'll see. Here in the second, though, there's some good quarterbacks that are still available. Darian Menza is coming off a really hot week, beating Virginia. Love that. But you got Jaden Mayava here. I do think, though, at 78, there's a certain point where these quarterbacks are going to slip because QB in round 2 is kind of kryptonite. So we're going to hold off on that. Wide receiver is possible here. You got Jeremy Bernard, who I do think is a really high quality round 2 receiver. Nick Harbor, I just think it's a little bit too much of an overlap. Chris Brazzell, I don't think he offers too much for the Steelers role specifically. So it's a weird spot for that. Honestly, I might end up re-opting and going the quarterback route just based on that alone. Because I don't think there's value anywhere else for the Steelers, but there's still okay, maybe this is one spot where you don't want to hold off. And so I'm going to go Darian Menza. Darian's a phenomenal quarterback. Most likely will return to school, but he did just beat Virginia. So, there's a chance if he makes a playoff run, he gets a lot of hype, he comes out. And his mobility, the way he can play the play action, I actually really like him in an Arthur Smith system. And so this is actually a really good spot for him to go. I'm a fan of him. I'm a fan of the Steelers, so I really do like the option of that in the future. 47, Panthers went Sonny Styles in the first, and they got blessed by passing on pass rusher because a lot of these guys are still here. And the one that I really like for him is Clev Lubin. He is a little bit on the lighter side than what they drafted last year, which was in 260 plus range. If you want to look at players like that, you're looking at Zion Young, Gabe Akis, Derek Moore. But, he's not too far underneath, and he's a strong player. So I really like Clev Lubin. He did end up having a bad week the moment I got to see him in person. But the early parts of the game, I saw some really big flashes. To me, I think he might have been injured that game. I think he might have hurt himself mid-game because the performance waned as the game went on. And that was a little bit concerning, but I never saw that in any other game. So there's a chance. It's pretty easy. You walk down the street, you twist your ankle, and you're out of commission for 2 weeks. You don't think it's possible that in the middle of a game he could end up tweaking something. So I'm going to theorize that, not with complete conviction, but, just based on the overwhelming evidence otherwise, I think that's it's the right move. 48 for the New York Jets. First pick, Mendoza. Second pick, Amari Washington. Can we move out of this spot? Or could we go crazy and go Jadarian Price and pretty much save this team from, having to worry about Breece Hall in terms of some drama and stuff for the long haul? That's the intriguing question. I've never done it before. You guys might get pissed. I'm going to throw that curveball. We're going Jadarian Price, running back out of Notre Dame. There's a chance he returns to school, by the way. There's Emmett Johnson you could talk about as well. For me, I think Emmett's is a little bit overrated based on how most of my emphasis on why I'm afraid of Emmett Johnson being as highly touted as he is that UCLA game. Go and watch it. It is a little bit concerning. Just gonna throw that out there. But the Detroit Lions went Caleb Lomu in round 1. They do not have a third round pick, so personally, I would try to move out of this spot. But Zion Young here, it is pretty tough to pass on that. We've already addressed, and again, Connor Lew's the only player I'm considering as not available, minus Quincy Rhodes, who also ended up saying peace out and we're going back to school. So I just don't think there's anybody that's crazily worth moving up for. I guess Chris Johnson and Julian Neal could be. You look at the Eagles. Who do we draft for the Eagles? I thought we drafted Colton Hood for the Eagles. Yeah, we did. Okay. So if the Eagles had not, that would be something where okay, we want to take a peek at that. But there's not that many teams I think are that desperate. The Packers could get a bit aggressive here. I wouldn't want to have sloppy seconds, so to speak, with some of these other teams that are up here. They could be trying to snipe at some corner positions. Even what do we do with the Rams? I'm trying to remember. We went Lenoris as well as Mansour. So, like, there are certain reasons why we wouldn't need to move up for the Packers, but there are some teams in here that definitely could be trying to maybe lurk a corner or two. I mean, you even look at technically the Titans already got one, but they could always use more. So, actually, I don't want to trade in division either, but I will be looking with them to make a potential move up for one of these two corners. Not going to happen at this pick, though. So we're going to go Zion Young here. Zion Young is an extremely high floor edge rusher. I think you need to continue adding those type of guys to your arsenal. And he's a like really well built guy, 262, good measurables. Like maybe not the flashiest player in history, but just a damn good one. So you fix some of the offensive line, fix the defensive line as well. Number 50, Houston Texans, Caden Proctor, Jennings Dunker. That's pretty much what you need to focus on. Just fix the left guard and center spot. I think the rest will kind of fall into place after that. You'd be surprised how 20% of your problems can resolve 80% of your issues. But Lee Hunter's the guy who I'm starting to think of more. First off, if I'm not mistaken, this team loves guys in Texas. Lee Hunter has been phenomenal this year. He was someone who is a top 40 player for me. And I was a little bit afraid to stay there because he gained some weight and did look a little bit less explosive than at UCF. But that was the role he was playing. I think he slims back down to 320 and he ends up just being a absolute freaking Tasmanian devil in the NFL. So we're going to rock him there at 50. 51, Ravens, TJ Parker, first round selection. Would have been cool to be able to snipe one of these edge rushers here. That's the only problem with allowing so many of them is that, there's also the risk that they slip too much. But for the Ravens, I'm going to go a guard here, Caleb Tiernan. I don't think he needs to be one at all. But at the same time, the value is perfect for him. And he can fill in a tackle if need be. 52, Buccaneers. First pick, Kenyon Sadiq. Well, second pick is going to be a linebacker or an edge. I promise you that. And, well, I will say, I actually really like Jake Golday. Jake Golday is actually a really good pick for this team. I might end up locking that in because I know the edge rushers might fall a little bit further. It's between Golday and Rodriguez. Rodriguez was not the one to have the great game last week versus BYU. There's another linebacker on Texas Tech who did. So shout out to, I'm forgetting his name, but the other linebacker ended up having a couple picks and a couple pass breakups. Ridiculous performance, but definitely a name to throw into the mix. We're going to go Jake Golday here, linebacker out of Cincinnati. He is a freak athlete as well, very similar to Kenyon Sadiq. It's just more of a straight line athlete. Maybe you could talk about him in some certain nickel packages being really good in coverage. We'll see. But, the acceleration, the change of direction is a little bit that's where I have my issues with Jay Golday. But he is somebody who I have as a, fringe second round pick. At number 53 for the Bills, first pick was Chris Bell. Second pick, if you guys don't like Jay Golday and Juan Rodriguez, I probably just take and flip them here. We're going to go Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker out of Texas Tech for the Bills. He's been phenomenal this year. Again, don't use PFF grades as your hallmark trait, but it's a good reference to have. And he's been a very, very reliable linebacker there for Texas Tech. Jake Golday as well. Number 54 for the Philadelphia Eagles, Colton Hood was the first round selection. I think that's the best thing you can do. You could try to get some development there on the right tackle side. Isaiah World, if I'm not mistaken, 4 years ago had some experience there, and he could play guard in the short run as well. There is some utility to that. Edge, I think that you guys should be fine. I think bringing back Jalen Phillips will solve a lot of problems in that realm. Safety, if you have, Zaki Wheatley's not a bad option if you want to develop somebody for the long haul. Wide receiver, I just don't see the player. Well, Nick Harbor would be interesting, but this offense isn't vertical enough. With Jalen Hurts, I don't trust it. With a year left on multiple defensive interior contracts, I do think rolling the dice on someone like Caleb Banks to get him healthy and then see how he works might be the best thing you can do at this point. Again, I don't really see enough of competition at this spot of the draft to start, allowing other teams to make some moves. But Caleb Banks came back from injury. It's good to see that he's still playing and being able to do so. But I do think based on the talent that's available, you're not really going to have a better ceiling talent that could end up being a long-term option for you. And defensive interior dominance has been a hallmark for the Eagles for a while now. 55 for the Indianapolis Colts. It's their first pick of the draft. We knew that once they trade those first, there was a legitimate concern as to whether they're going to maintain their level of production. And of course, injuries have played a huge part in that. But I do think getting quality edge talent is super duper important. And for me, you could look at Malachi Lawrence here. Malachi's been a fantastic pass rusher. If you want to go for something a little bit more balanced, you go after someone like Denai Dennis Sutton. Derek Moore is still on the pass rushing side of things, but very good player nonetheless. Like, there's just good players all around. But if you're looking at Lou Amarino's defense, he does like a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go after the player who I personally prefer, and that's Malachi Lawrence, edge rusher out of UCF. It says he's 250 here, but we have official numbers from preseason where he's 263, 35-inch arms, and he's just a really reliable threat. At number 56 for the Niners, Mekhi Lemon was the first round pick. I'm going to go after some pass rush here because the value is awesome. Like, all these players are really, really good value. And I'm going to take the shot on Cassius Howell. They don't usually go after smaller edge rushers, but I think that the value is impeccable here. The problem with Cassius Howell is he has under 31-inch arms. So for those of you guys who are new to scouting, for edge rushers, 33 inches is kind of the threshold. It's like if you have over 33, that's going to be like something we don't really worry about or think of as a positive. If you have under, it's going to be a concern. Not a, stop there, but under 31 is something we just don't see succeeding in the NFL. So you're having an exception on top of an exception, which is why some teams will have some issues there. R. Mason Thomas is a good alternative to Cassius Howell, but I'm still happy with this move here. At 57 for the Los Angeles Chargers, Vega was the first round selection. I am open to going after someone like Isaiah World who can fill in at tackle in the short term and then be the guard for the long. Same thing with Caden Green. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And again, PFF, please put in more guys. I don't personally understand why it's like, I know it's kind of like more of a quality control thing, but you could just put an NA. And I know that Trev said it's not really how it works, but I'm just gonna be honest, it easily could be. Like, you could just have like a float pool where it doesn't necessarily, factor into maybe the automated parts of the draft, but could end up being like almost an appended version of the draft board. It is getting a little ridiculous that we are in December and I'm having to take placeholders. Just throwing that out there. But the Chargers can continue upgrading the edge talent as well based on just best player available. Best player available is rarely a bad move. And so I actually really love the idea of, going back to Michigan and getting a high quality pass rusher here who's 260 pounds and Derek Moore. At number 58 for the Jaguars, no picks so far. And again, do we have Eli Raridan in the mock draft simulator? Of course not. Yeah, maybe it's time to switch away from this. But I do think like taking somebody like Isaiah World who has tackle guard versatility is going to be something that is pretty damn valuable here in the late second. So we're going to go with him there at 58 and see where he can end up landing. 59 for the Packers. Good that we didn't trade up because two really good corners slipped to them. Chris Johnson and Julian Neal. I think Julian Neal is going to be a little bit more on the physical side. Chris Johnson a little bit more on the ball production side. I'm going to go Julian Neal here, who I do have a really solid grade on, definitely within this range. And, 6'2", 210, definitely somebody you can test out on the boundary. Number 60 for the Seahawks, Emmanuel Pregnon was the first round selection. I am very much open now for edge rusher based on the value available. And did I end up taking... Oh, where's he at? R. Mason Thomas, the guy who I'm looking at. I love versatility because I think Mike McDonald does a fantastic job of handling it. But I also just think when the best player available is a high-quality edge rusher, you also let Mike McDonald do whatever the hell he wants with it. We're going to go R. Mason Thomas, edge rusher out of Oklahoma. 61, Los Angeles Rams. Mansour Delane, Lenore Sellers. Those are two great players to add to this squad. Now, you could try to have some right tackle competition. I don't think you need to go after right tackle necessarily. So I'm looking at Max Iyanker, Emil Wagner. Both these guys are very good players. And I'd personally trade back for both. I think that Emil Wagner's a very good player. I've been a fan of him. He's probably 95% sure he's returning to school. Good money there. Not a lot of hype. But he is definitely somebody for a team like the Eagles who could sit and develop him. That would be somebody who I would really, really like for them. But we already got that quarterback position solved. I'm actually going to look at wide receiver here. And I know the value if Nick Harbor hits. I know what that could bring to a team. And you have Lenoris on your team. It just makes sense. Nick Harbor, the selection there. 62, Denver Broncos. Casey Concepcion via trade up in the first. Here in the second, honestly, Deontay Lawson is probably going to be my pick. I freaking love Deontay Lawson. I mean, it's kind of surprising. I didn't think because he was like solid last year. I liked him the year before. Like he's passed the eye test every single time. But this past time, I thought he got even better. And I think he'll be around that 235 range. So I want Vance Joseph to have some fun. We're going Deontay Lawson. 63 for the Bears. Caden McDonald's the first round selection. And again, no trades right now, but the value has just been on point for these teams. We're going to look at Deni Dennis Sutton here because, I mean, he's been really reliable, tons of experience. Kind of makes sense. We're going to go Deni Dennis Sutton. 64 for the Patriots. First pick, Denzel Boston. I think that's a really key thing for us to have grabbed as well. We did lose that third round pick because of it, but do we just like double up at wide receiver? That'd be fucking nuts. We're not going to do that, FYI, but that would be kind of fun. I do think you could try to develop a long-term right tackle here, like I was talking about. Like talk about Max Iyanker and Emil Wagner. Those are the two right tackles that I would try to focus my energy on. Like I think that wouldn't be a net negative move. Like I think you should probably try to trade back first. And the question is, if we trade back, who's worth trading up for? And I think Chris Johnson is absolutely that player to try to make a move for. I think the value is just through the roof. And if I'm the Giants, I'm definitely trying to make this move. The Commanders, to be fair, they just don't have a lot of draft capital. So I don't know if I would want to make too heavy of a push for them. I know the Vikings definitely can use a boundary corner as well. And they're an aggressive team. To be fair, I know they were talking to the Patriots too when they were trying to draft Drake May. Sorry to stoke a nerve. But to be fair, we could also get a quarterback for them as well. I don't think that would be a bad move because like we did end up going after Jeremiah Love early. You know, we ended up drafting. I'm so glad they have a second round pick. Dylan Thieneman. Like center is a big issue for them. That's what I would end up targeting at 75. But I do think with the value of a high quality corner here, it's worth making a move. I mean, I would get a little bit aggressive here if I'm Minnesota. You can't be complacent at this point. I think for a move up of 11 spots, we should be tossing in like maybe 111 and getting back something. Like we could talk about 132 is a little bit much. I think we end up doing that and end up tossing in something else for the Patriots, like a 173. You could talk about 161. But that way, the Patriots end up moving up as well, 20 spots, and getting an extra pick. The Vikings have now officially moved up and added Jeremiah Love and Dylan Thieneman, Chris Johnson, cornerback out of San Diego State. 65 for the Titans, Avion Terrell, Keldrick Falk, Carnell Tate, kind of solving a lot of the issues that we are a bit more concerned with. But I do think you can continue investing in the edge core if you see the value as worth it. And there are some good players like Kenyatta Jackson, Max Llewellyn, players who I really, really like that provide a ton of value here. I do think you could try to, at least improve the offensive line to some degree. Running back is not out of the question. I mean, you could end up talking to, please say they actually have him in here. You guys better have him. Unfucking believable. How do you guys not have Emmett Johnson in here? He literally is declared for the draft. Unbelievable, PFF. Apparently I'm all cranky today, but I think that, we're going to do that. Placeholder, Emmett Johnson, running back for the Titans. Who do I like in this range? I'm going to show some love to Anthony Hankerson as a placeholder, but this is Emmett Johnson, running back out of Nebraska. One cut back, really good, reliable receiver, just a damn good player. But again, PFF, man, it's fucking December, man. I mean, we've given you a pretty damn long leash. It's time for you to actually step your game up. But Houston Texans at number 66. Part of me wants to go Jonah Coleman, but it is at that point where I'm almost thinking Katron Allen is going to be the more possible back here in the third round, and as like more of the power back. And I've loved Katron Allen. I think that his athleticism is a big red flag, but he's improved this year and he's been extremely dominant. He's been a true bell cow back. We're going to go Katron Allen there for the Texans. Number 67 for the New Orleans Saints. We went defense at Arvell Reese and Christian Miller. Let's not let's not ignore the offensive line anymore because I think getting a high quality guard with some tackle implications is always a great thing. I'm going Caden Green, guard slash tackle out of Missouri. He's been extremely reliable this whole entire year, even because, I mean, one of his 2 sacks was in week 1. That's where we're like, oh shit, this guy's ass at tackle. And then he's really cleaned up. And I love that. Like, really good on him. At 68 for the Vegas Raiders, Ty Simpson, Blake Miller. Good foundation there on offense, but we still need to address the defensive side of things. You got Big Dom Orange here, Daryl Jackson as well. Daryl could be more of a high floor plug, but I also think, Brandon Cleveland needs to be in the mix. I know he'll be at the Shrine Bowl, so it's a little bit early for someone like that. Maybe he'll end up being more of a late third option. Like linebacker, we do still have some very solid players here. I know, actually, it was actually a fake report. Whit Weeks is not transferring, but like definitely someone you could consider here is Whit Weeks. Kyle Lewis is awesome. He just ended up being freaking turned to Swiss cheese this past week in coverage. And like that sucks because I think he's a very good player. He just got destroyed by Malachi Toney. Who wouldn't though? Malachi Toney's awesome. You know what? I'm going to take a shot on that. We're going to go Kyle Lewis, linebacker out of Pittsburgh. I think when he ends up playing at the level that we know, and he's not just being pretty much a slot corner against a potential like top 10 pick at wide receiver, I think we give him maybe a pass. Number 69, New York Giants. Jordan Tyson, Anthony Hill. Those are the 2 positions to really address. Now we can look at corner as well. You got D'Angelo Pons here, but I do think it's a little bit too close. Dave Zneg-Benosin would be my next guy. I love Iggy. That's just a guy who I have a huge fandom for, but I will admit there are just times where I think the penalties, even though they've dropped, could scare him into this range. So we're going to take the shot on him, though, because the ceiling is insane, and I would take him with the next pick for the Commanders, who ended up taking Ruben Bain in the first round. So I think you need to start looking at wide receiver here. We're going to get a deep threat in Chris Brazzell to stretch the field. I think it's a smart thing to do. At 71 for the Philadelphia Eagles went Colton Hood, Caleb Banks. I'm actually going to look at the tight ends here. You got Justin Jolie. I think if you want to go after more of a blocking tight end, Miles Kitzelman's up your alley. I do like Eli Raridan, though. And Eli is technically still available in this, and he's a really good blocker. He's 260 pounds. We're going to let Luke Hodge be the placeholder there for Eli Raridan, who, again, is a top 50 player for me. Amazing blocker, really good receiver. Just, again, PFF, man. I mean, I'm not going to put any like names out there. I have sent in some wish lists that have included a lot of these players several times. So I'm just like, please put them on here. But the organization as a whole, like, guys, please. You guys, it's not a good look. I'll just put it that way. AJ Halsey is still available, which means that I want to get a team that wants him. Not many teams that are like that desperate, but Arizona Cardinals here at 72. Spencer Fano and CJ Allen, respectively. I do want to get someone who could push the field. Honestly, Jeremy Bernard's just such a high floor player, but we need to look at some quarterback help here. It's pretty obvious that you guys are not in the position that you guys want to be in. And so I'm going to go with Jaden Mayava here, quarterback out of USC. Just a high ceiling quarterback. You need to have somebody who can distribute the ball. And he's an extremely fun quarterback nonetheless. You need to throw some darts at it, whether it's in the first round or here. That's where we'll have to find out. 73 for the Falcons. Keith Abney was their first round selection. I'm going to run this to the podium. Darrell Jackson Jr., nose plug out of Florida State. The best run defensive interior, maybe besides Caden McDonald, in the entire country. 74, Cincinnati Bengals. First pick, Caleb Downs. Second pick, Austin Searveld. Are there any other Ohio State players? Funnily enough, there is, and he matches exactly what I would want for this team. We're going all Ohio State, baby. We're going Kenyatta Jackson, edge rusher out of Ohio State. He's going to have a solid enough athletic foundation, great measurables, and he's a big player who's having his best games now. And so it's going to be a great opportunity for a team that needs edge talent as well. We're going to go Kenyatta Jackson. Ohio State, Ohio State, Ohio State. At number 75 with the New England Patriots, we traded back, got some extra draft capital. And I think that was really important for us to do as well. Moving up 20 spots in the 4th round, which I know is not fun for you guys because you don't get to experience that, but definitely helps us out nonetheless. I do think, again, trying to invest in that right tackle side for the long haul is a smart move. And I'm going to test out Emil Wagner. He's up to 300 pounds from 290 last year. He's probably going to return to school, but again, that's the whole entire point of us having this theory. So, like, we're testing it out in case some of these players make surprise declarations. Emil Wagner, right tackle out of Notre Dame, great athlete. Again, could use a little bit of time to season and get back on the wagon. But we pretty much addressed offensive line. I know that left guard also is a good move, and I think if you want to use Emil Wagner as a short-term guard, that's not a bad idea if you cross-train him to be the right tackle of the future. 76 for the Dolphins. First pick, Cisse and McNeil. Warren is the second. Jeremy Bernard is just too valuable at this point. Super high floor receiver, someone who's worth a second round pick. Just send the pick in and just have a high quality receiver nonetheless. 77, Kansas City Chiefs, Peter Woods, Mateo Uyagole. We need to focus on the offensive side. And Damon Claiborne's here, who's an absolute like home run hitter. There's Justice Haynes as well. He's been very, very solid. Someone asked why I don't draft him. Like, first off, health. But secondly, and more importantly, other backs have had a lot of success there in that Michigan system. It's a little bit more of an indictment on him, basically, than anything else. So I do think the system could be producing a little bit more than his sole talent is doing. So I just got to put that out there as well. Rest in peace to my boy, Jaheim White. I miss this guy. He was someone who I just like, I love seeing in person. He's somebody who I really, really wish could end up doing more. But I do think Damon Claiborne's an option here to just have someone as like a heavier threat. But to be fair, Jonah Coleman's worth the risk. We're going to throw the dart at Jonah Coleman, who could end up being more of the like heavier ground and pound type. 78, Pittsburgh Steelers, Jermar McCoy, Darian Menza. Really happy I did that because there's still a very good selection of wide receivers available here. And I'm trying to think of who would be a reliable two. And Elijah Surratt absolutely could be. Elijah Surratt would end up being essentially if somehow, some way Cooper Kupp has a solid year or like some type of bounce back, it would be the role that he has. So Elijah Surratt, the weapon that we are going to select here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. 79, Carolina Panthers, Sonny Styles, Cleve Lubin. I'm actually still going to look at safety here. AJ Halsey, Zaki Wheatley. Can't go wrong. I'm going to stick in the South. We're going to go to Baton Rouge for AJ Halsey. Heavy hitting defensive back who also has some good ball skills. 80, back with the Steelers. Again, Jermar McCoy, Darian Menza, Elijah Surratt. I think at this point we could try to take some shots on offensive line, especially at a guard role. And, Carter Smith's an intriguing one. He's a left tackle, but I definitely think of him more as a guard. I think it's a smart move. He's been very reliable all year long. He just looks like a guard in the NFL. So it's going to be good to have that flexibility, but at 80, you might as well. Number 81, Jaguars. Isaiah World was the first selection. I'm actually going to roll the dice on Max Clare, tight end out of Ohio State, to be more of a route running type that has a solid foundation as a blocker as well. 82 for the Miami Dolphins, Cisse, McNeil Warren, Jeremy Bernard. I'm going to go after an edge rusher here since Jalen Phillips is gone. And looking at the options available, I think I want to stick in town and go Akeem the Dream Amezador. He's been ridiculously talented and solid this whole year long. Doesn't get the respect he deserves. Has a great foundational weight. Worth the risk of him not having a long career to have an instant impact. Number 83 for the Baltimore Ravens. First pick, TJ Parker. Second pick, Caleb Tiernan. Maybe not the most impactful players in history, but still damn good ones nonetheless. Could look at defensive interior here based on some of the talents that have slipped, like Big Dom Orange. Big Citrus could be a good choice at this point. Like linebacker-wise, you can talk about Torrey and York. I wouldn't be against that. Again, even like Wet Weeks in this range. There's certainly guys that you can end up tossing darts here. Jack Kelly's a interesting one, not at this point. But I honestly might look at LT Overton. Like TJ Parker is going to be a little bit more of the like pass rushing and just solid all-around edge. LT is still a good player, but he's someone who could kick to the inside in certain packages. That'd be a really intriguing gadget weapon. And at 83, I think it's worth, seeing if that ends up panning out. At 84 for the Buccaneers, corner's probably my next eye. I end up having Kenyon Sadiq, Jay Goldday. Edge rusher with Mellow Height as well. Joshua Josephs. Joshua might be worth it at this point. He is smaller. I do think that when you watch the tape, the numbers kind of deceive you. We're going to go Joshua Josephs. We're having a run on edge rushers here to perfectly replace Hassan Reddick. 85 Buffalo Bills, Chris Bell, Jacob Rodriguez. I do think that, going edge rusher here isn't a bad idea either. Like, we could just see a massive run on edge rushers. And Gabe Atkins is coming off a fantastic week. He had a slow start to the year, but he's picked it up. And I'm like really proud of that because Gabe was someone who popped off to the Discord squad. Shout out to the OGs. And ended up doing a fantastic job as a true freshman. And now we're seeing him flourish. And at his size here, the 270 range, he's going to be a really good player to test out on that edge. 86 for the Dolphins. We had an edge, wide receiver, safety, and corner. You could try to get some quarterback competition in there. I think at this point, it's not a bad idea to bring in somebody to have some sort of, competition. Like John Mateer, like with the mobility, could be an interesting asset to have. Garrett Nussmeier, I think, would fit the offense better, though. Honestly, it's not a bad choice. We're going to go Garrett. We're going to test because NFL scouts love Garrett Nussmeier. Even if he's not playing anymore, they're going to be willing to spend probably a late third on this guy. And I wasn't in the mood to trade back because there's not somebody who I'm like itching to send. But at 87 for the Colts, we've taken edge rusher with Malachi Lawrence. Linebacker, I've already kind of depleted that position. So looking at some other spots where I think we could end up getting longer term impact, defensive interior with Big Dom Orange. Let's just go down the road. And at 87, even if he ends up being a rotational guy, the value is still great. 88 for the Niners, Mekhi Lemon, Cassius Howell. I've just been going best player available for him. I'm going to potentially look at Ian Strong, just add the receiver core, CJ Daniels as well. Very, very good players. But we do need to look at the offensive side as well. Looking at the players who are available, I actually really like AlexCBarbour as a guard, and he does have the ability to play tackle. Monroe Freeling as well. He's somebody, if you want to sit him and develop him as a tackle, I don't think he fits in at guard. So that is someone who's a true tackle that could work. I'm going to go AlexCBarbour because of the fact that I believe in him as a guard, to be that long-term left guard who has the ability to fill in at tackle if need be. At number 89 for the Chargers, we got Vega and Derek Moore. I'm going to go after my center that I love, who is not, of course, on here. You guys know how this game rolls. But I'm trying to see who would be a good placeholder. Davion Carter. That's the only reason why he has any sort of spot there. But Davion Carter is going to hold the placeholder for my number 23 player, Lyndon Cooper, center out of Pittsburgh. Just definitely somebody that's not going to be drafted as high as he should. But the Jaguars went Isaiah World and Max Clare. I think they'll roll the dice on someone that people had as a top 10 player coming into the year in A.J. Harris at boundary corner and just see if that sticks. At 91 for the Packers, Julian Neal was their first selection. Ian Strong's going to be the second. Just the values of these players and the fit is just fitting perfectly. Ian Strong, pretty much going to be a Romeo Dubs level impact there in terms of the contested catch, the build. I really like Ian Strong. Number 92, Seattle Seahawks, Emmanuel Pregnon, or Mason Thomas, respectively. I wanted to go linebacker, but we just haven't been able to find the value there. And, a corner, D'Angelo Pons would be intriguing, but I just personally don't really think that the corners here move me very much. I'd prefer to retain rather than, test that theory out. So, running back wise, it's an underrated need for the long haul. We'll see what the long-term vision is. But Damon Claiborne being a home run hitter, not a bad choice to add into the mix. As long as he's healthy, this dude's an absolutely dominant beast. He just ended up having a pretty tough time during this year. And so I'm going to throw a curveball here and go Damon Claiborne, running back out of Wake Forest, someone who I think could end up being, within that first round territory if he's fully healthy in the right system. It's a ballsy claim, but he is just one of those dominant players. 93 for the Rams, Mansour Delane, Lenore Sellers, Nick Harbor. It would have just been heaven if AJ Halsey somehow was here, but we got Zaki Wheatley. I'm perfectly happy with that as well because he's a heavy-hitting player who's going to replace Cam Curl, and he's been really good. He's just a very good safety to have, and at 93, you run those picks to the podium. 94, Denver Broncos, Casey Concepcion, Deontay Lawson. Those are the big positions that I'd worry about. Center, we've already kind of dealt with that with Luke Wattenberg getting his contract extension. So now it's just kind of tight end. And I like Justin Jolie. He's 263, but he's been very clutch in big moments. And Justin Jolie is someone who I really love coming into the year. So we're going to go Justin Jolie for the Broncos. Bears at number 95, Cade McDonald, Denai Dennis Sutton. I do think you need to start looking at running back here as well. This is where you can look at a burner like Justice Haynes. You can end up definitely looking at that and saying, hey, he's on pretty much half a year of production, but he ended up dominating in that half a year of production. Definitely something to keep your mind open to. Outside of that, I mean, there's not many positions that I think you're going to want to fully target. Like, you could try to get some developmental interior offensive line talent if you want to do that, because you don't have the youngest interior offensive line in the whole entire country either. So, Kobe Baines, he's just super duper reliable. Definitely somebody I'd like to throw into that mix. You talk about Jake Slaughter, who's been reliable this year, Chase Pizantis, like Charles Jagasaw. I mean, I would love for him to have played. Is he getting reps finally? No. He had like I think an ATV accident that put him out for the year. Talk about like crazy shit that's happening too. But this team also needs a nose guard. And I will say Dante Corleone's one of those I would toss in that mix. Tim Keenan is just the definition of a plug. Like, that might just be worth it here at the end of the third. Let's get the plug. I like Tim Keenan. We're going to go with him here out of Alabama. 96, Chargers. This is another team that could have used it. So Lyndon Cooper at 89, my number 23 player. Derek Moore, edge rusher out of Oregon, as well as Vega. So we addressed offensive line twice. We've addressed edge rusher. That's where you need to really focus the most amount of your work. I do think getting a fullback / blocking style tight end would be really nice. And Miles Kitzelman with his drops, the only reason he's going to be taken here is because he's a good route runner who is a really good blocker, and you could try to work with the hands. That's just the ultimate thing. 97 for the Vikings. They went Chris Johnson, Dylan Thieneman, Jeremiah Love. It's time to bring in some type of quarterback competition. I'm going to take the ceiling of John Mateer at this point. At number 98, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jermon McCoy, Darian Menza, Elijah Surratt, Carter Smith. And I think Romello Height is just too good a value. Kind of reminds me of, like, we got Jack Sawyer. We got Herbig before. Romello Height, I mean, the pass rushing implication that he can have for this team, let's throw the dart. 99, Philadelphia Eagles, Colton Hood, Caleb Banks, and Eli Raridan, not Luke Hodge. Those are the big positions I really wanted to hit. So I'm pretty happy about that. Right tackle-wise, Brian Parker's more of a guard. Actually, Max Iyanker's here. I think he's close to 35-inch arms as well. Let's take him and put him into that rotation. Why not? Test it out. There's a lot of good players there at 99. It's worth the risk. And again, Quincy Rhodes, the only reason he's not being taken is because he declared to go back to school. Last player, I actually wanted to be CJ Daniels. I think CJ is a good player. And he needs to go to a good home. And Cleveland Browns already took a player that's very similar. Texans no, Jets all day. I'm going to make this move. I just think it's important. And for a 7-spot move, there's not really much that you can really do to like justify a very large movement. I'm going to go 139 for 165. We're going to just have that swap there. And so the Jets, they've moved up. They got Darian Price, Amari Washington, Fernando Mendoza. They're going to get their final piece here with C.J. Daniels, wide receiver out of Miami. So that's going to be the video. Thank you again so much for watching. Did we make it in under an hour? I think we did. So good on us. It was really fun. We're going to see a lot of guys starting to return and stuff. Thank you guys again for supporting the show. Love you. See you later. Peace.